Now time to introduce our keynote speaker for this afternoon. And here is Derek Strobel, a member of the Board of Trustees and past board president for HCCO.
Well, Merry Solstice, everyone. It's good to see so many people here. You must have been extra good this year without God. We have a special guest for you. Many of you know JT Eberhard through his blog, WWJTD. Those of you who read his blog know that the WWJT has nothing to do with what would Jesus tweet. It stands for what would JT do. Being a humanist and wanting to find out what JT would do, I launched an investigation. The internet has its share of bogus information. For example, I am skeptical of the claim that JT holds both Olympic and world records as a champion at Candyland. It's maybe one record, but both? Anyway, more accurately, JT is known for his hugs and his sense of humor, for his skill as a musician and as a magician, and for his passion as a debater about atheism and LGBT rights. JT is one of the founders of Skepticon, where he recently asked Michael Eberhard to marry him. And, yeah, congratulations. JT is a former high school specialist organizing groups with the Secular Student Alliance and has now recently taken a new career path as a speaker and blogger. With his blog, JT fights ignorance and hate, and he's been fighting tooth and claw. To ask what would JT do implies some strategy for living wisely and well without God. So what is JT's way to bring more facts, fairness, and love to life? From what I've seen, JT would insist on good reasons for claims, insist on knowledge as an important part of living well, insist on fairness, and insist on compassion for those who have been harmed by irrational beliefs. And today, JT will be telling us how those commitments have impacted his own life, how communities can support us in reaching those commitments, and how those commitments can shape our future. Let's give a warm welcome to JT Eberhard.
And after that intro, I retire. Was it John Lennon always said that every time he heard someone talk about him or write about him, he always felt like that's some other person, that's not me. And every time I get an intro like that, I'm like, geez, that's some other dude. Like, I'm a music major. Anyway, so Julie asked me to give a talk here for the Winter Solstice Banquet, and I'm extremely honored. Thank you for having me. And she asked me, what do you want to speak about? And I said, well, you know me, I want to speak about why religion sucks and how it's terrible for humanity. It's my shtick, it's what I do. And my mom always said, stick to what you're good at. And Julia said, well, how about you talk about how the Freethought movement has impacted you and what it's meant to your life? And I said, fine. So here I am. And it's gonna feel like a talk about me. You know, what has the Freethought movement meant to my life? And it is, because I'm arrogant. But it's really a talk about you guys and every other free thinker and every other humanist outside of this room. I wouldn't be here without you guys or them. So what has that all meant to me? Why is that so? How many of you used to be religious? Okay, not the only member of that club. I used to be religious too. I came out of religion after reading the Bible the first time. I literally turned the last page over. It's like, nope, don't believe that. Awesome. And I was just for a couple years. I was pretty apathetic about it. You know, yeah, I don't believe Jesus rose from the dead. Big deal. You do. Okay, awesome, fine. And it was I didn't even know an atheist movement existed, and then I became aware of the Four Horsemen, and my mother got me Sam Harris's books for Christmas because she knew I wasn't a Christian anymore. She didn't know who Sam Harris was, but she heard he was on the New York Times bestseller, so she got me his books. And they were okay, had some flaws to them, but one sentence in The End of Faith literally changed my life. And that sentence was, "We live in an age when someone can have both the resources and the intellect to construct a nuclear weapon and still think he'll receive paradise for detonating it." I was like, wow. It turns out people's beliefs aren't just personal. They affect the world. They affect everyone. And that was really where my activism was born, from the outside influence of someone in the Freethought and atheist movement. So from there, I decided I wanted to start changing the world. How many of you know about the flying spaghetti monster? Okay, awesome. Not the only member of that club either. So a friend of mine showed me the FSM on the internet, and we're like, oh, this is so cool. We should go chalk flying spaghetti monsters all over our college campus. Wouldn't that be great? And so we started doing this. Late one night, when a campus security guard came up to me and said, "What are you doing?" I said, I'm chalking, officer. He said, "Are you a part of a student organization? Because you can't do that if you're not a part of a student organization." And I did what any amoral atheist would do in this case, I lied. "Yes, sir, officer, you bet I'm a member of a student organization." Whew, which one? College Republicans? And thankfully for me, he bought it. But we decided that if we wanted to keep doing this, if we wanted to keep chalking flying spaghetti monsters and handing out flying spaghetti monster pamphlets, then we should probably become a student organization. So we looked into what it would take for us to become a student organization. Turns out at our school, we needed 5 people and a constitution and bylaws. We're like, we can write stuff. Awesome. So we got some friends together and we did that. And that led to just a whole bunch of, I want to say activism, but I really want to say fun. There was a group in downtown Springfield who ran a soup kitchen. And they would feed the poor if the poor signed a contract obligating them to attend church X number of times. It was like blackmailing the poor. And so they came to our campus every now and again to tell us how premarital holding hands could land us straight in hell. And we knew they were coming one time, and so we stayed up all night building a pirate fort next to where they were going to be. You guys know those flat rate postage boxes from the Postal Service? If you get them one at a time, they'll charge you for them. It turns out if you order 500, they assume you're a small business, and they just give them to you. So we acquired about 500 of those boxes and stayed up all night, and we made the most amazing cardboard box pirate fort you have ever seen. I don't know how many of these you've seen, but this was the best one. It was 30 by 30, 5 foot high, parapets, pirate flag in the middle, signs, had a skeleton dangling over one wall. This was the best thing ever. And we chalked flying spaghetti monsters everywhere. In fact, we knew where they were going to park to unload their van. And so we went and we chalked a big Jolly Roger right next to it and wrote "Ye be warned." And so they show up, and there's 50 pirates out right next to their space with this fort, and me and my friend, the leader of the group, standing in their space, pirate flag billowing in the breeze. This was the activism that I got nudged into by one sentence in a Sam Harris book. And our college group went from something like 5 members to start with. After a year, we had over 200. We built a community just by messing with people. Yeah. So it gave me an outlet to affect change, but only as an individual. We were just working there at the school. Then Debbie Goddard at the Center for Inquiry got wind of our group and sent us a box of swag and invited me to attend their summer conference, and I went. And I got to talk to student leaders from across the country, and I told the stories of the pirate fort and all the stuff we were doing, and they loved it, and I got ideas from them, and I started working with people from across the country. So no longer was I just an activist at a college campus, I was an activist with several groups, some of which weren't even in Missouri. And then we decided to start a conference. You guys have all heard of Skepticon, I assume, by this point, run by students. And that really showed me what a difference individuals can make. I mean, there are conferences like the Amazing Meeting that are run by organizations with a budget, with people who are pros at organizing conferences. Skepticon was run by a bunch of students who could barely make it to their next class. I mean, this is what we were doing, homework, studying for finals, and running a national conference. It was never supposed to be big. It was just like building a pirate fort. It was just something to do. And it wound up this year being the biggest atheist conference in the country, run by students. So what the Freethought movement taught me with Skepticon, it taught me a lot of things. One of the things it taught me is there's no such thing as small activism. Even big activism is made up of small activism. It's made up of people having fun with their activism and starting a bowling night and getting people together, and it snowballs. No one sets out to make Skepticon. They set out to do little stuff. I always ask my friend David, who did all that with me, what's the most important thing to you as an activist? Because this guy is the best activist you've never heard of. And he always said, change the little things. Don't do anything else, change the little things. And so that's what that taught me. People say, how many of you have heard this? You know, why do you try talking to religious people? You'll never change anything. Right? We've all heard that. But we do. We just do. And being a Freethought activist has given me the chance to see that. I was just out here going to the bathroom, and I bumped into Julia. Not in the bathroom, that was and Julia says, wow, we should have gotten a bigger room. And Julia's not the only organizer who has ever said that to me. And this is what is becoming of our movement. Skepticon, the very first Skepticon 5 years ago, had 250 people, and this year it had 1,500. It grew from 250 to 350 to 800 to 1,200 to 1,500, and it looks like it's going to keep growing. And this is not because the people running it are so good. I mean, they are so good. It's because our movement is growing. The SSA numbers. When I started at the SSA, they had 200. I keep saying we, because I still consider them part of my family. 250 groups. Now, are you still over 400 after Athens? Almost to 400. 390. And this is under 2 years, that kind of growth. Anytime someone says to me, why do you try to do this activist stuff, you're not going to change anybody, I just want to punch them. Because they can't be looking at the same world that I'm looking at. They can't be looking at the same movement that I'm looking at. This is exactly what's happening. And as I've realized how big the movement's getting, I've started to realize how small some people are. And I don't say that to be particularly insulting. I don't say it to be insulting at all. I say it as a compliment. How many of you read Greta Christina? Anyone? A lot of us? I read Greta Christina every day in college. And at the 2010 SSA conference, my father reads Greta Christina too, religiously, as it were. At the 2010 SSA conference, Greta Christina comes running up to me and says, "You're JT Eberhard." I pooped my pants. I literally... And we sat there shooting the breeze, and I'm sure I was, doing this, but I was playing it cool. Like, yeah, I'm JT. Yes, I am JT. And so we shot the breeze, and she wound up walking away. Of course, I pulled out my cell phone and immediately called my dad. Like, you will not believe what just happened. And since then, since I've become a public figure in the movement, I've gotten to become best friends with Greta. Wow. And I've gotten to realize how not special she is, which is what makes her so awesome. She's just a normal person, and she worked at a publishing company while she was doing all this writing. Everything she did while she had a job. She's literally I realized she was literally no different from me. She wasn't the second coming of Christ or anything. She was another human being. Matt Dillahunty is another human being. You will never meet a more down-to-earth person than Matt Dillahunty. And it's so much more impressive what they've accomplished being just normal people. I used to think that there was a huge partition between the people on the stage, the P.Z. Myers, the Hemant Metas, the people on stage, and then us, their followers in the audience. And there's really not. We're a movement of individuals, and even though my role might be as a speaker or a writer, My role is no more significant than the role of a Julia who organizes stuff like this, or someone in this group who organizes a bowling night or a movie night. That was a wonderful realization for me. And I hope to keep spreading that in the way I conduct myself and the way I encourage the other people like me who are the public figures to conduct themselves. And I used to think, back when I was running Skepticon and I was a very effective college activist, I used to think I was really good. And then I met Liz Liddell. She's really good. And I met Amanda Metzges. She's really good. And I met Debbie Goddard and Amanda Knief of American Atheists and David Silverman of American Atheists. And I realized I was a pretty mediocre organizer. I was a big fish in a very, very small pond. So not only did that make me a little more humble, learning where the real heroes are in the free thought movement, it made me realize that there's a lot more heroes out there than I knew about. It's not just Greta Christina. It's not just P.Z. Myers. It's Jeff Dubin doing small-time organizing here at the HCCO. It's Greg fixing the computers for them. It's whoever organizes the Bleeding Feed. It's the people who volunteer to become counselors at Camp Quest for no pay. They're just as important. And in a lot of ways, they're even better heroes, because me, I get paid to do this. I make money writing about the stuff that hacks me off. The people who volunteer, they're doing it outside their job. They're doing it for no pay. I'd say it's even a lot more impressive what they do. And I've gotten to watch young activists grow, being a part of the free thought movement. Allison over here has been a Camp Quest camper her whole life. When I was the high school organizer with the SSA, she was sending me emails every couple weeks. How can I get involved in this? Can I volunteer for you? Can I run a middle school group? That's like calling up and being like, how quickly can I get ostracized? Can you help me with this? I know adults who are not that brave. That changes you. It makes, for me, it made me realize, I'm an adult from a secular family. Everybody knows I'm out. My life is pretty easy. And I'm like, oh, look at me, I'm a big bad activist. Now, the big bad activists are the ones who are doing something where they have something to lose. And I got to see so many of those when I was with the SSA. So many high school students. When I was with the SSA, I think I capped when I was there at 44 some odd high school groups. 4 of them had leaders who we had to send blind packaging to, because if their parents found out that they were leading a secular group or even part of a secular group, they ran the risk of being kicked out of their homes. I'll never be that good. I'm lucky in that I'm a fighter personality. I love going out and tweaking my opponents. Liz is over there. Yes. She had to manage me when I worked for her. But it's true. And I realize not everybody is like that. A lot of people, if they had their druthers, they'd sit at home and read books all day and watch Judge Judy. I mean, not watch Judge Judy. They would go out for walks in the woods. They don't want to spend their time trying to change the world. But they do it because it's such a huge issue, because they see the students who could get kicked out of their home. They see people who are afraid to talk about their atheism for fear of losing their job, and they see the need for this community. I call them reluctant warriors because they are. They take time out of doing what they want to do to try and make the world a better place. And I never knew anything like that existed before the free thought movement. I'm going to get into a battle with Julia for who can tear up the most.
I win.
Oh, yeah? I've still got half a talk to go. The free thought movement to me has meant support. A lot of you who read my stuff know that I'm a sufferer of mental illness, and I say sufferer very literally. I'm a recovering anorexic, getting progressively more recovered. And when I moved to Columbus, I was subject to 3 of the top 4 forces that could catalyze a relapse. New job, end of a relationship, and moving. If I'd have gotten death of a loved one, I would have hit the smorgasbord there. But I relapsed into anorexia, and I had a very difficult time. And I wanted to keep it very secret. How do you say to someone that you're crazy and expect them to be your friend, right? But Liz noticed, and I told Liz, and every day I went to the doctor, and I got my medicine, and every day when I got to work, there'd be a pill right by my computer waiting on me. I called Jeff Dubin, who came and talked to me about getting help. And that eventually gave me the support I needed to start writing about it. I started writing very honestly about my struggles with mental illness, fully expecting people to come and comment to my blog, be like, "Oh wow, we read your blog and you're nuts, we're going over to Frangula." Most of them came from Frangula, it turns out. And they didn't do that. That wasn't the reaction I got. The reaction I got was nothing but support. Holy cow, we love you, thank you. And I got emails upon emails from other people who are in the same boat as me. Like, I can't tell anybody about not only my atheism, but I can't tell them about my mental illness struggles. And reading you makes me feel like there's some solidarity there. And so then at Skepticon 4, I gave a talk pretty much telling my story about mental illness. And the Freethought community responded. Groups across the country started doing mental illness meetups. It became the subject of a couple talks at Skepticon this year, and it's starting to pick up steam in the Freethought movement. Not because it's more interesting than any other topic, but because there's so much more suffering and happiness at stake for it. And that's what the Freethought movement cares about. And I never thought there would be that kind of reaction to that. And I don't think there would have been in a lot of other circles. Yeah, what now? Oh, man. No, not yet. That would kind of mess with my mojo here. But the Freethought movement showed me how much compassion was out there and how little judgment there is out there. The Freethought movement changed my thought processes. Even though I'm no longer apathetic about religion, I'm an activist amongst activists, it still changed the way I look at my activism. I talk to religious people a lot. It's what I do. And if you talk to religious people a lot, you're eventually going to hear, when you're citing some terrible thing a religious person has done, oh, their religion's they're not a real Christian, they're not a true Christian. My religion is the right one. And that flummoxed me for a while. And I realized the reason it flummoxed me was because I considered myself an activist for atheism. And that was wrong. I no longer consider myself an activist for atheism. I consider myself an activist for reason. And I'm an activist for atheism insofar as that's a reasonable conclusion. But that changed the way I talk to those Christians. And they say, their religion is not my religion is different. My response became, why is your religion more reasonable? And that changed the whole way I looked at it. And the reason that changed is because I started reading the news to blog about it more, and I realized that every couple of months I would read a story where a child who didn't have to die died because their parents watched them in their illness and never took the time to summon an ambulance. Because they prayed. And they believed that calling a doctor would be challenging the beneficence of the Lord. And I realized, reading those stories, that I wasn't very different from those parents. Which is kind of a terrible thing to realize. But those parents loved their kids as much as I would love my child. And they wanted their child to get better as much as I would want my child to get better. The problem with those parents wasn't, as Christianity would often have us believe, that there's something inherently malicious in the human condition. The problem was just that they had a bad idea about how the universe worked. And once they did, all the good intentions in the world weren't enough to save them. And I realized the reason I despised religion so was because it was the only institution telling people it's okay to be unreasonable. Not only is it okay to be unreasonable, you damn well better, there's some consequences on the line after you die. I realized how corrupting irrationality was to our good intentions. And I realized that we had a moral obligation, not only to ourselves, if we have good intentions, to try and be as reasonable as possible to make sure our good intentions are borne out in reality, but that every single person around me whose beliefs are the arbiters of their actions, and whose actions affect me and everyone else, they have a moral obligation to be reasonable. And so the Freethought movement, or being involved in the Freethought movement, changed me from an atheist activist to an activist for reason. It's made me a little more uncomfortable with religious people who can no longer say my religion is different. But it's been very, very good for me. I talked earlier about the support I'd gotten from the Freethought movement and how important that had been to me, what that meant to me. And as my star has risen within the Freethought movement, it's given me the chance to come back and be that support for others. I said earlier I'm a fighter personality. I was in the Springfield airport waiting to come up here. And I went to the bathroom and I came out, and when I came back there were 2 police officers standing over my backpack and my laptop. First cop looks at me and says, "Is this yours?" "Yes." Other cop says, "Well, where were you?" I said, "Pooping." Says, "You can't just do that." I said, "Well, I wipe too." And Liz and August know that this is just my personality. And that personality, that kind of flippancy, that defiance of authority, has given me a place within this movement. It's given me a role of making kind of well-intentioned and reasonable fun of religion. When I was the high school organizer with the SSA, a couple times a week, I would call a high school administrator who didn't want to let an atheist club form and read them the Riot Act. And I was good at it. And I missed that. I wasn't always the best at my job, but I was good at that. It gave me the chance to support young people who are in a much more difficult position than I ever was. Most of you know about Jessica Alquist. I reached out to her in my capacity at the SSA and wound up with a friend and wound up supporting her through her ordeal. And we still talk to each other every couple weeks, about talks and about what life on the road is like. And just being a part of her ascent. You will never find a sharper person. I mean, she's 17 going on 40. She's so smart and so brave. I came up with an idea to do the Evil Little Thing shirts. That was me and Hemmett and Ed Brayton who came up with that, and it wound up going in large part to pay for her college. We just ran a fundraiser on my blog that wound up sending $500 and change to Camp Quest and $500 and change to Women in Secularism. Just being a chance to be there for people has meant the world to me, and being a part of the Freethought movement has given me that. So what's the take-home from this? The take-home from this is every single part of all the stories I've told you here, of what the Freethought movement has meant to my life, has spoken to the need for community. Every step along the way couldn't have happened without being a part of a community. Communities not only are important to give us a place to belong, but they make it easier for people to come out of the closet, and that's very important. One of the main reasons the gay rights community has come so far is because they've made it so easy and encouraged people to come out of the closet. And tons of Americans are realizing, a lot of them for the first time, not only do they know gay people, that they like gay people. I could give them all the arguments in the world. I could give all the arguments in the world, great arguments, to people who think atheists are all pathological to the extreme and not budge them an inch. But those same people might not think that their daughter is particularly evil, or their son is evil, or their parents, or their friends. Coming out of the closet is one of the most powerful things we can do to change the societal rubric, to change people's minds. And the communities we build are what makes it possible. I mean, this is a power that's not available to me. It's a power to change people's minds that's not even available to Richard Dawkins, but it's available to most of the people in this movement. And we can empower them to do that. Not only by building communities, but by giving them some place to go and have fun. Start a bowling night. You guys know plenty about this. You guys do social events like this. Bowling night, movie night. Because there are more atheists out there than we know about, because they're sitting in the pews, because they think they need a way for their kids to make other friends while they're in school, or they need a place to hang out. The more we build communities, the more we give them an out, so they're no longer sitting in the pews on Sunday, being pressured by the glares of the other people there to drop 10% of their income to an institution they no longer support. All the arguments in the world aren't going to get people out of that scenario, but events like this, and bleeding feeds, and game nights, those will. And I didn't used to acknowledge the importance of that, at least not on that scale. And being a part of the Freethought movement, and watching the work of Liz in Humanist Community of Central Ohio, has really changed my mind on that. In this community, I found my fiance. We met at a Freethought party when I was giving a talk. We met in a community, imagine that. And our relationship grew, and I met her mother, who was an atheist, and her mother loved me. Because let's face it, most parents think their daughter's going to come home with a guy in cut-off shorts smoking a cigarette and a tank top, and I've at least got my shit together. So she loved me. And I didn't get to meet her dad until later. Her dad is religious. And so we met a couple times, and things went well, and his daughter was happy in my presence, and I presented myself as an adult who has his shit together. And then I decided I wanted to marry her. Now, he knows what I do for a living. So I called him up and pretty much said, "Hi, Tony, it's JT. I got your number from Mike Lynch, never called him before. And you know me, I'm pretty much straight to the point. This is a serious call. I'm calling because I'm considering asking your daughter to marry me, and I don't want to do it without your permission." Your dad's religious. And the next words out of his mouth were, "Please do." I don't know if knowing me changed anything. But being out about my atheism, being happy about being an atheist, certainly didn't hurt. It's part of the narrative that people get in church, that atheists are miserable and they hate their life and they need Jesus to be happy. And don't drop out of the faith because you need Jesus to be happy. Being an activist helps, but being an activist with a smile kind of undermines that narrative. And I take a lot of pleasure in that. And groups like this make atheism with a smile so much easier, so much more natural. And I think that's why we're growing so much. Thank you guys for everything that you've meant to me. Every humanist outside of this room, for what they've meant to me. My life wouldn't be where it is without you guys, and I wouldn't be where I was as an activist without you guys, and we wouldn't be where we are as a movement without these communities. Thank you. On the internet is the angry activist. So let's just not talk about this. I like religious people being frightened of me. It's 3:05. I was told to be done by 3:15. I can do Q&A. You can sit my happy arse down. You guys sing? We can do a Q&A. You can sit. Sing. So you want me to sing? Why?
You got to sing sometime.
Sing Amazing Grace.
I look up like Christmas asshole. You get away from Liz. She's married. Oh. Sing. Okay. What do you want me to sing? Poor Unfortunate Souls. Oh my God. I heard a groan up here in the front.
Amazing Grace.
Give me your humanist card. You work for an atheist group.
Imagine.
I'm a terrible. All the nice things I just said about communities. Done.
What's your favorite song to sing?
What's my favorite song to sing? I was doing Les Mis in the shower this morning. I mean, I was like a man. And certainly not Nancying about show tunes in the shower. Okay.
So, how about JD gives us two options, and we're going to determine by round of applause which song he's going to sing for us. So, what are two options?
Got any Les Mis fans in the house? Okay.
And then what's an alternative?
Okay, well, I'll do...
Imagine.
I don't know all the words to Imagine. I'm a terrible atheist. You get my atheist card. Okay, so we'll do Les Mis or something in Spanish.
Okay, so let's have a round of applause if you want to hear JT sing Les Mis. Or if you want him to sing something in Spanish. That's pretty even.
Sing Les Mis in Spanish.
My favorite Spanish word, no. I'll do both.
Okay. Let's vote.
Actually, interesting story. So when I agreed to speak here, I was still working at the SSA here in Columbus, and then I stopped working for the SSA, and I decided I'm a writer for a living now, and I can do that from anywhere. So I decided to go home. I had a speaking tour in November. I just drove to all those locations, and I went home for the holidays, and I was like, wow, I have to buy a plane ticket back to my home to give a talk, and then fly right back out. Okay, Spanish.
Hola.
Hola. Done.
Sing La Cucaracha.
I'm not going to sing anything. I'm just going to sit here and just listen to you guys keep shouting things out. Free word. Granada, tierra soñada por mí. Mi canto se vuelve eterno cuando es partí. Mi canto eca de fantasía. So there's Spanish. You know, I was thinking to myself, like, I kind of cheered up during my talk. I'll think, what's the most upbeat song I can sing from Les Mis? Then I realized there's no upbeat song. The Empty Chairs. Empty Chairs.
Master of the House.
I love Master of the House. If I ever got cast in Les Mis, that's what I would have to be. Character baritone. Yeah. There's a grief that can't be spoken. There's a pain goes on and on. Empty chairs at empty tables. Now my friends are dead and gone. Here they spoke of revolution. Here it was they lit the flame. Here they sang about tomorrow. And tomorrow never came. From the table in the corner, they could see a world reborn, and they rose with voices ringing, and I can hear them now, the very words that they had sung became their last communion on the lonely barricade at dawn. Oh, my friends, forgive me that I live and you are gone. There's a grief that can't be spoken. There's a pain goes on and on. Phantom faces at the window, phantom shadows on the floor, empty chairs at empty tables, where my friends will sing no more. Oh, my friends, don't ask me what your sacrifice was for. empty chairs at empty tables, where my friends will sing no more. Singing after you've spent like a half hour tearing up is the worst thing. Congrats to Amanda and Julia for both their awards. I couldn't think of anybody more deserving.
So I just want to share that a lot of people were kind of saying, oh, sing Imagine, and kind of putting that together with some of the, I think, the takeaways for me from what JT said is that we don't have to imagine. We already have this wonderful community. The community is a part of the big community that JT was talking about. We provide support to each other. We are atheists with a smile. We do represent ourselves and our community well to our friends, neighbors, and co-workers, whether or not they've ever met an atheist before, whatever they think. And we can all make a difference at any level, like JT said. Big or small, everyone that was acknowledged earlier, and all the volunteers, all the donors, and even just being a welcoming face in the group, a welcoming face in the crowd, helping people who are here for the first time. That is such a huge, huge thing. And I'm just really proud and honored to be a part of this community. So thanks to everyone.
Yeah, that was good.